You're alone on a dark highway. Your headlights cut through the blackness. Then you see something that makes your blood run cold. I've been driving trucks for 12 years, and I thought I'd seen everything on these lonely highways. But that October night in 2019 changed me forever. I was hauling electronics from Las Vegas to Dallas, my Peterbilt loaded with about $250,000 worth of laptops and smartphones. The kind of cargo that makes you check your mirrors every few seconds. It was just past 1 a.m. when I merged onto Interstate 40 through the Arizona desert. The temperature had dropped to 42 degrees, and the road was mine. No other trucks, barely any cars. Just me and the endless black asphalt stretching toward the horizon. My wife Rachel had texted me earlier, reminding me to be careful. She always worried when I took these night runs. I told her I'd be fine, that I'd done this route 100 times before. The first sign something was wrong came around mile marker 165. I noticed two vehicles in my mirror, staying exactly the same distance behind me. A dark SUV and a silver sedan. At first, I didn't think much of it. Plenty of people drive at night. But after 20 miles, they were still there. Same distance. Same position. Never getting closer, never falling back. I changed lanes to test them. They changed lanes too. I sped up to 70. They matched my speed perfectly. My heart started beating faster, and sweat formed on my palms despite the cool air from the AC. I'd heard stories from other drivers about hijacking crews that worked the Southwest routes. They'd follow you for miles, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Around 2:15 a.m., a third vehicle appeared. A white van with no markings pulled onto the highway from a rest area I'd just passed. It accelerated hard, quickly catching up to join the SUV and sedan behind me. Now there were three vehicles, and they were forming a pattern. The sedan on my left, the SUV directly behind, and the van on my right. They were boxing me in at 70 miles per hour. My mouth went dry. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. I reached for my CB radio, but before I could grab the mic, all three vehicles suddenly accelerated. The sedan pulled up beside me on the left, matching my speed perfectly. Through my window, I could see the driver. He wore a black ski mask and was staring directly at me. Not at the road. At me. His passenger held up a piece of cardboard with something written on it, but we were moving too fast for me to read it. The van pulled up on my right side, sandwiching me between them. The SUV stayed behind, its high beams flooding my mirrors with blinding light. I was trapped. Three vehicles surrounding an 80,000-pound truck at highway speed, and I had no idea what they wanted. Then the sedan started drifting toward me. Slowly at first, then more aggressively. The driver was trying to force me off the road, pushing me toward the shoulder. I could see the desert dropping off into darkness just beyond the guardrail. If I went over, my truck would roll. At this speed, I'd be dead before help arrived. I slammed my hand on the air horn, the blast echoing across the empty desert. The sedan backed off slightly, but didn't leave. Instead, both the sedan and van started flashing their lights in some kind of signal. On, off, on, off. The pattern repeated 3 times, then stopped. That's when I saw him. A man was climbing out of the van's passenger window. Not getting out. Climbing out while we were doing 70 miles per hour. He pulled himself onto the van's roof, his jacket whipping in the wind. He was holding something in his hand. A rope with a hook attached to the end. My entire body went cold. They were going to try to hook onto my trailer while we were moving. I made a split-second decision. I jerked the wheel hard to the right, directly toward the van. The driver's eyes went wide as my truck's front bumper came within inches of crushing his door. He slammed on his brakes, tires screaming. The man on the roof lost his balance and tumbled backward, rolling across the van's hood before disappearing from view. The sedan and SUV immediately fell back, probably not expecting me to fight back. I floored the accelerator, pushing the truck as fast as it would go. The speedometer climbed past 75, then 80. The entire rig was shaking, my cargo shifting in the trailer with loud metallic groans. But I didn't care. I needed distance. For about 2 miles, they stayed back. Then they started gaining again, their headlights growing larger in my mirrors. The SUV pulled into the left lane and started coming up beside me. This time, the passenger window rolled down, and I saw a flash of metal. A gun barrel pointing directly at my cab. I ducked instinctively as the first shot rang out. My driver's side mirror exploded into fragments of glass and plastic. Another shot punched through the sleeper cabin behind me, the sound like a hammer hitting metal. These people were trying to kill me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep the wheel straight. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but there was no signal out here in the desert. The nearest town was still 40 miles away. I was completely alone with 3 vehicles full of armed people hunting me down. The sedan pulled up on my left again, and this time, the passenger leaned out with what looked like a spike strip. They were going to throw it in front of my tires. If those spikes shredded my wheels at this speed, the truck would jackknife. I'd flip. I'd die. I saw a sign flash past. Emergency vehicle turnaround, 1 mile ahead. I had one chance. I kept my speed steady, letting them think I was trapped. The sedan inched closer, the passenger's arm drawn back, ready to throw the spike strip. The SUV moved up on my right. The van stayed directly behind me, high beams still blinding me through the mirrors. The turnaround appeared in my headlights. At the last possible second, I yanked the wheel hard left, cutting across both lanes. The truck's trailer swung wide, nearly jackknifing as I fought to control it. Tires screamed. The smell of burning rubber filled the cab. But I made the turn, crashing through the median crossover meant for emergency vehicles. The sedan tried to follow, but it was going too fast. The driver overcorrected, and the car spun out, rotating twice before slamming sideways into the guardrail. The SUV and van shot past the turnaround, unable to slow down in time. I was now heading west on the eastbound side of the highway, completely alone. My entire body was shaking, my shirt soaked with sweat. I drove for another mile before seeing headlights approaching from the west. Real headlights. Normal traffic. I pulled onto the shoulder and finally managed to dial 911. My voice was shaking so badly the dispatcher asked me 3 times to repeat my location. I told her everything. The 3 vehicles, the shooting, the attempted hijacking. She said units were already on their way. Someone else had called about gunshots heard near the highway. I sat there for 35 minutes until the state police arrived. 4 patrol cars, lights flashing red and blue across the desert darkness. The officer in charge was a tall woman named Sergeant Martinez. She had me go through everything again while her partner photographed the bullet holes in my truck. Sergeant Martinez told me I was the 4th driver to report a similar incident in the past 2 months. All along the same stretch of Interstate 40. All carrying high-value electronics. But I was the first one to get away. The other 3 drivers weren't so lucky. 2 were found dead in their trucks, shot multiple times. The 3rd was missing, along with his entire load. They found his truck abandoned 200 miles away in New Mexico, completely empty. No body, no cargo, nothing. Martinez showed me photos from the other crime scenes. My stomach turned when I saw them. The violence was extreme. These weren't just thieves. They were killers who enjoyed what they did. They never caught them. The sedan I'd forced into the guardrail was gone by the time police reached that section of highway. No debris, No skid marks, nothing. Like it had never happened. The only evidence was the bullet holes in my truck and the shell casings they found on the road. The FBI got involved because of the interstate nature of the crimes. An agent named Kirkland interviewed me twice, asking about every detail I could remember. He told me they suspected this was a professional crew, possibly connected to organized crime in Mexico. They'd been operating for at least a year, targeting trucks carrying electronics, pharmaceuticals, and cash. But here's the part that still keeps me awake at night. Agent Kirkland showed me surveillance footage from a rest stop 60 miles before where I'd encountered the 3 vehicles. The footage showed my truck pulling in for fuel. And in the background, barely visible, were the SUV, sedan, and van. They'd been watching me since before I even knew they existed. He zoomed in on one frame. A man standing beside the van, looking directly at the camera. His face was partially hidden by shadows, but his eyes were visible. Cold, calculating, patient. He was holding a tablet, probably tracking my truck through some device they'd planted. Agent Kirkland asked me if I'd stopped anywhere before that rest stop. I told him yes, at a truck stop in Las Vegas where I'd grabbed dinner. He nodded slowly, then showed me another photo. Security footage from that truck stop, showing a man in mechanic's coveralls crouched beside my trailer. The timestamp showed he was there for less than 2 minutes. That's when they'd tagged my truck with a GPS tracker. They'd been planning this for hours, maybe even days. Waiting for me to get far enough from civilization where no one would hear the gunshots. The company gave me 2 weeks off after that night. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man climbing onto the van's roof. I saw the gun barrel pointing at my head. I heard the sound of bullets hitting metal. My wife Rachel wanted me to quit. She said no job was worth dying for. But trucking is all I know. It's how I provide for my family. So I went back, but everything changed. I installed extra locks on my trailer. I got a concealed carry permit and keep a Glock 19 in my cab. I vary my routes randomly, never taking the same highway twice in a row. And I never, ever drive Interstate 40 through Arizona again. 3 months later, Agent Kirkland called me. They'd found something. A burned-out van in the desert, 80 miles from where I'd encountered them. Inside were the remains of 2 bodies, both shot execution style. The FBI believed this was the work of the same crew, but turning on each other after I'd gotten away. The other vehicles, the sedan and SUV, were never found. Neither were the other crew members. For all I know, they're still out there. Still hunting trucks on lonely highways. Still killing drivers who carry the wrong cargo. Sometimes, late at night when I'm driving through darkness, I check my mirrors obsessively. Looking for vehicles that stay the same distance behind me. Looking for patterns that seem too coordinated to be random. Because I know the truth that most people don't want to believe. On these remote highways, in the dead of night, you're not really alone. Someone is always watching. Always waiting. And if you're unlucky enough to be carrying what they want, they'll come for you. They'll surround you at 70 miles per hour. They'll shoot at you without hesitation. And they'll disappear into the darkness like they were never there at all. I survived by pure luck and instinct. The next driver might not be so fortunate. Story 2, the woman at the rest stop. I'm one of only about 50 female long-haul truckers working the southern routes, and that fact alone puts a target on your back. But nothing prepared me for what happened at that rest stop in New Mexico on a freezing November night in 2020. I was 36 years old, driving a load of construction equipment from Phoenix to Little Rock. It was around 3 a.m. when I pulled into this massive rest area off Interstate 40, one of those places with separate parking for trucks and cars, bright lights everywhere, and a visitor center that stayed open 24 hours. I'd stopped there dozens of times before. It always felt safe. The parking lot was about half full. maybe 20 trucks scattered across the spaces, their engines idling in the cold. I pulled into a spot right under one of the brightest lights, a habit every female driver develops. You always park where you're visible. After using the restroom and grabbing terrible coffee from a vending machine, I headed back to my truck. The temperature had dropped to 28 degrees, my breath fogging in the air. That's when I saw her. A woman was standing beside my truck's passenger side, just standing there motionless, looking up at the cab. She was maybe 25 years old, blonde hair in a ponytail, wearing a thin t-shirt and jeans. No jacket, despite the freezing temperature. Her arms were wrapped around herself like she was cold, but she wasn't shivering. Something about that felt wrong immediately. I slowed my pace, watching her. She didn't move, didn't look around, just kept staring at my truck like she was waiting for something. As I got closer, she heard my footsteps and turned toward me. Her smile appeared too fast, too wide. "Oh, thank God," she said, her voice higher than I expected. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but my car broke down about a mile back and my phone died. Could I please use yours to call someone?" The words came out rehearsed, like she'd practiced them. And her eyes kept darting past me, toward the darker section of the parking lot where the lights didn't reach as well. I stopped about 10 feet away, keeping distance between us. "There's a visitor center right over there," I said, pointing toward the building. "They have phones you can use." Her smile faltered for just a second. "I tried there, but it's locked. The doors are locked." She took a step toward me. "Please, I just need to make one call. I'm scared out here alone." But the visitor center wasn't locked. I could see lights on inside through the windows. I could see the open sign glowing red above the door. She was lying. "Sorry," I said, backing toward my truck. "I can't help you." Her expression changed instantly. The fake sweetness vanished, replaced by something cold and angry. "What kind of woman are you?" she snapped. "Leaving another woman stranded? What if something happens to me?" I didn't answer. I just kept backing up, my hand reaching for my keys. That's when I saw them in my peripheral vision. Two men emerging from behind a parked trailer about 30 yards away. Both wearing dark hoodies, both moving toward us. Not walking. Moving with purpose. My heart started hammering. I turned and ran for my truck, boots pounding on the asphalt. Behind me, I heard the woman yell something, but I wasn't listening. I yanked open the driver's door and threw myself inside, slamming it shut and hitting the lock button. The woman was at my window instantly, pounding on the glass. "You bitch! Open this door!" Her face was twisted with rage, all pretense gone. The two men reached my truck seconds later. One of them pulled out a Slim Jim and started working it into the door frame, trying to pop the lock. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. Through the window, I could see a third person now. Another man, standing by a dark sedan parked between two trucks. He was just watching, like a supervisor making sure his crew did their job right. The operator answered, and I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "I'm at the rest area on Interstate 40, mile marker 312. 3 people are trying to break into my truck. They're attempting to rob me." The woman heard me and stepped back, her eyes going wide. She whistled, one sharp note that cut through the night. All 3 of them immediately stopped and started walking away, quick but not running. Trying to look casual. Within seconds, they were in that dark sedan and pulling out of the parking lot. No squealing tires, no dramatic exit. They just drove away like they'd never been there at all. But I'd gotten the license plate number. I'd memorized it the moment I saw the vehicle, a habit my dad had taught me years ago. Always remember the plate. Always. The police arrived in 18 minutes. 2 state troopers, a man and a woman. The female officer, whose name tag read Chen, took my statement while her partner walked the parking lot, checking for evidence. Officer Chen's expression got darker as I described what happened. When I finished, she pulled out her tablet and showed me a photo. "Is this the woman?" I looked at the screen. It was her. Exact same face, same blonde ponytail. "Yes," I said. "That's her. Her name is Kelly Morrison," Chen told me. "She's part of a group that's been targeting female truckers across 4 states. They use her as bait because women are more likely to help another woman in distress." She showed me more photos. The 2 men who'd tried to break into my truck. The 3rd man who'd been watching. All known associates of Morrison. All with criminal records for robbery, assault, and kidnapping. "Kidnapping?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Chen nodded grimly. 3 female truckers have gone missing in the past 6 months along this route. We found one of them 2 weeks ago in an abandoned warehouse in Albuquerque. She'd been held for ransom, but the company refused to pay, so they killed her. My stomach turned. That could have been me. If I'd opened my door, if I'd let that woman use my phone, I'd have been the next victim. "The license plate you gave us is registered to a stolen vehicle," Chen continued. "But it gives us a starting point. We'll track them." Her partner came back, holding something in a gloved hand. A small black device, about the size of a matchbox. "Found this under her trailer. GPS tracker. They'd tagged my truck. They knew exactly where I was, probably had been following me for miles. Waiting for me to stop somewhere isolated enough to make their move." The next part made everything worse. Chen asked me when I'd last fueled up. I told her at a truck stop about 80 miles back. She made a call on her radio, requesting footage from that location. 20 minutes later, she showed me surveillance video on her tablet. The footage showed my truck at the fuel pumps. And in the background, barely visible, was the dark sedan. Morrison was inside, watching me through the windshield. One of the men was walking around my truck, crouched low. He was under there for maybe 30 seconds before standing up and casually walking away. That's when they'd planted the tracker. "How long had they been following me?" I asked. "We don't know," Chen admitted. "Could have been since Phoenix. Could have been since before that. These groups sometimes monitor dispatch communications. They know when valuable loads are moving, and they target solo drivers, especially women." She told me 4 other incidents had been reported in the past month. All the same pattern. Morrison would approach drivers at rest stops, usually women, with some story about needing help. If they fell for it, the men would move in. If they didn't, like me, the crew would retreat and try again somewhere else. The female driver they'd found in that warehouse had been tortured for 3 days before they killed her. The company had video of her begging for her life, sent as proof she was alive. But they refused to pay the ransom, citing company policy. So Morrison's crew shot her and dumped her body where it would be found as a warning. I sat in my truck for another hour after the police left, just shaking. Every shadow in the parking lot looked like it might hold someone watching me. Every vehicle that pulled in made my heart race. Officer Chen had stayed with me, making sure I was okay to drive. Before she left, she gave me her card. "Vary your routes," she said. "Don't stop at the same places twice. And if anyone approaches your truck at night, don't engage. Lock your doors and call 911 immediately." I made my delivery in Little Rock, but I barely remember the drive. My hands stayed clenched on the wheel the entire time, my eyes constantly checking mirrors. When I finally got home to my apartment in Texas, I broke down. My boyfriend found me sitting in my truck in the parking lot at 4 a.m., sobbing uncontrollably. He wanted me to quit. Said the money wasn't worth dying for. But this job is all I have. It took me years to get my CDL, to build a reputation in an industry that doesn't respect women. I wasn't going to let Morrison and her crew take that from me. But everything changed after that night. I installed a dashcam system that records 360 degrees around my truck. I carry pepper spray, a taser, and a knife. I joined an online group of female truckers where we share real-time updates about dangerous stops and suspicious people. 6 weeks later, I got a call from Officer Chen. They'd arrested Morrison and her crew in Oklahoma after they'd tried the same setup on another female driver. But this driver was an off-duty cop, and she'd been ready. She'd drawn her weapon the moment Morrison approached, and backup arrived before the men could escape. Morrison got 15 years. The 3 men got 20 each because of the weapons charges and their connection to the murdered driver. But here's what still haunts me. During the investigation, police found Morrison's phone. She had dozens of photos on it. Pictures of female truckers at rest stops, at fuel stations, at weigh stations. License plate numbers. Truck numbers. Routes. Schedules. One of those photos was me. Taken 3 days before the incident at that rest stop. I was pumping fuel at a different truck stop in Arizona, completely unaware someone was photographing me. Planning to kidnap me. Planning to ransom me or kill me. They'd been watching me for days. The FBI expanded their investigation and found that Morrison's crew had been operating for almost 2 years. They identified at least 12 victims. 3 were dead. 2 were still missing. The rest had been ransomed successfully, their companies paying between $50,000 and $200,000 for their release. The 2 missing drivers have never been found. Somewhere out there, they might still be alive. Or their bodies might be buried in the desert, never to be discovered. I still drive trucks. I still work night runs when I have to. But I never feel safe anymore. Every person who approaches my truck is a potential threat. Every rest stop is a place where someone might be watching, planning, waiting. And the worst part? Morrison's crew wasn't unique. Officer Chen told me there are dozens of similar groups operating across the country. All targeting trucks. All targeting drivers who are alone, vulnerable, carrying valuable cargo or themselves worth ransoming. The highways aren't safe anymore. Maybe they never were. But now I know the truth. And once you know, you can't unknow it. Every time I pull into a rest stop late at night, I see Morrison's face in my mind. That fake smile. Those cold eyes. That instant switch from sweet to violent. And I remember how close I came to being victim number 13. Story 3, the hitchhiker who wouldn't leave. 15 years of driving taught me one absolute rule: never pick up hitchhikers. But on that cold September night in 2017, I broke that rule. And I've regretted it every single day since. I was hauling electronics from Chicago toward Newark, my old Kenworth grinding through the darkness of Route 80 across Pennsylvania. The divorce papers were fresh in my glove compartment, signed just 3 days earlier. My mind was somewhere else, not fully focused on the road. That's probably why I didn't see the danger until it was too late. It was around 2:30 a.m. when I pulled into a truck stop outside Clarion for fuel. The place was nearly dead. Maybe 6 trucks scattered across the lot, all dark except for a few sleeper cabin lights. The overhead fluorescents were flickering badly, making everything look strange. Underwater. Wrong. That's when I saw him. He was standing just at the edge of the light, maybe 20 feet from the fuel pumps. Not moving. Not pacing like hitchhikers usually do. Just standing there perfectly still, holding a piece of cardboard. As I got closer, I could read what it said: East. That was it. Just one word. No destination, no please, no story. Just East. Something about him made my neck prickle. He was wearing this heavy canvas jacket that was way too warm for September. His face was hard to see in the bad lighting, but I could make out a thick scar running from his left eyebrow down to his cheekbone. White and ropey, like it had never healed properly. While I was fueling up, I kept glancing at him in my mirror. He never moved. Never looked at other trucks pulling in. Just stood there staring at nothing, like he was waiting. Like he knew exactly which truck would stop for him. When I finished fueling, something in me made a stupid decision. Maybe it was the loneliness from the divorce. Maybe it was just habit from years of helping people. But I waved him over. He started walking toward me, slow and deliberate. His boots made no sound on the concrete, which seemed impossible given how heavy they looked. When he got close enough to talk, I could see his eyes. Pale gray, almost colorless. And he had this habit of not blinking that made looking at him uncomfortable. "Need a ride east," he said. His voice was flat. Empty. Like someone reading words they'd memorized but didn't understand. "I'm only going as far as Brookville," I told him, figuring that would make him refuse. "Maybe 40 miles. "That works," he said immediately, and started walking toward my passenger door without waiting for me to actually agree. Every instinct I had started screaming at me to drive away. To leave him standing there. But I didn't. I climbed into my cab, and he climbed in after me, settling into the passenger seat like he'd been there 1,000 times before. Up close, I could see more wrong details. His hands were completely hairless. Even the knuckles. His fingernails were filed down to nothing, and his skin had this waxy quality under the dome light. He didn't have any bag or belongings. Nothing. What hitchhiker travels with absolutely nothing? I pulled out of the truck stop and merged back onto Route 80, trying to ignore the way he sat perfectly straight in his seat, hands flat on his thighs like he was posing. The CB radio crackled with static, and I noticed my temperature gauge starting to act strange, dropping and rising even though the engine temp was steady. About 5 miles down the road, he finally spoke again. "What are you hauling?" "Electronics," I said, keeping my answer short. He made this sound that wasn't quite a laugh. More like someone clearing their throat. "Electronics," he repeated slowly, like the word was foreign. "Expensive cargo. Probably insured for what? 100,000? Maybe more?" My neck tensed. That's not a normal question. That's information thieves want. Then he started asking more questions. If I had a regular route. If I always drove alone. If anyone was tracking my progress tonight. Each question came out in that same flat tone, no emotion, like he was checking boxes on a mental list. I lied about everything. Said I had to check in with dispatch every hour. Said my cousin was meeting me in Brookville to take over driving. But he just nodded at each lie like he knew exactly what I was doing. Then he asked the worst question. "Do you have any weapons in the truck?" Just like that. Casual as discussing the weather. My mouth went dry. I gripped the steering wheel harder. "Got a tire iron under the seat," I said. Nothing more. Even though my .38 was sitting in the sleeper compartment right behind us. I wasn't about to tell him that. He made that throat-clearing sound again and shifted slightly. The first real movement he'd made since getting in. "Tire iron," he said slowly. "Useful tool. Can open a skull like a coconut if you hit it right." The casual way he said it made my chest tighten. Like he was discussing a recipe. We passed a sign saying Brookville was 25 miles ahead. I started calculating if I could make it that far. Started thinking about pulling into the next well-lit area and making up some excuse about engine trouble. That's when he reached into his jacket pocket. I tensed, ready to grab for my pistol. But he pulled out an old flip phone. The kind nobody uses anymore. He started pressing buttons without actually calling anyone. The screen wasn't even lit up. Then he held it to his ear and started talking to nobody. "Blue Kenworth, Pennsylvania plates," he said into the dead phone. "Driver's about 6 foot, heavy set, wearing a Steelers cap." I wasn't wearing a Steelers cap. I'd never owned one. But when I glanced at my reflection in the rearview mirror, there it was, sitting on my head like it had always been there. My John Deere cap was nowhere to be seen. He continued his fake conversation, mentioning the mile marker we'd just passed. He said 15 minutes and closed the phone with a snap that sounded like breaking bones. The next 10 miles felt like 100. Every shadow on the side of the road looked like a person waiting. Every set of headlights in my mirrors seemed to follow too close. He'd gone back to sitting still, but now he was humming. 3 notes, repeated over and over. The sound drilled into my brain like a dentist's tool. I kept checking the clock, watching those 15 minutes countdown, wondering what would happen when they hit 0. At 12 minutes, I saw an exit coming up with a Shell station sign. I made a split-second decision to pull off. Started flipping my turn signal. "No," he said. Not loud, but firm. His hand moved to rest on the gear shifter between us. Not grabbing it, but just placing his palm on top. "A warning." "Brookville," he said. "You said Brookville." His fingers were ice cold even through my glove when they brushed against my hand. I pushed his hand away and yanked the wheel toward the exit anyway. But the truck wouldn't respond. The steering column felt locked. The exit ramp flew past while I fought with the wheel, the truck staying perfectly in its lane like it was on rails. "Mechanical problems," he said flatly. "Happens sometimes with these older models. Steering just gives out." I knew my truck. Knew every sound and shake. This wasn't mechanical failure. The wheel was turning. The truck just wasn't listening. The speedometer showed 55, but looking out the window, the trees were flying by like we were doing 90. Then I saw them in the mirror. 2 sets of headlights that had been pacing us for the last 5 miles. Keeping perfect distance. Never falling back, never getting closer. "Friends of yours?" he asked, making that not quite laugh sound again. I reached back for my pistol, but my hand hit empty air. The sleeper compartment wasn't there anymore. Just a solid wall of metal. Like it had never existed. "Funny how memory plays tricks," he said, watching me realize this. "You sure you ever had a sleeper back there?" The Brookville exit appeared, and without me touching anything, the truck started slowing down. The turn signal clicked on by itself. The 2 cars behind us moved into formation, one in the left lane, one staying right, boxing us in as we headed down the exit ramp. My phone went dead. Screen black. Wouldn't turn back on. The exit ramp seemed to go on forever, curving into darkness where no lights were visible. Even though I knew there should be a flying J right at the bottom. "Here's what happens now," he said, his voice suddenly different. More animated. More real. "You're going to pull into that warehouse up ahead. The one with the broken windows and the red door. You're going to back your trailer up to loading dock 3. Some people are going to unload your cargo. Takes about 20 minutes. Then you're going to drive away and forget this ever happened." The warehouse appeared out of the darkness exactly as he described. Abandoned looking, but with fresh tire tracks in the gravel lot. The 2 cars pulled in behind us, their lights going dark. I thought about ramming the building, jackknifing the trailer, anything to stop this. But my arms wouldn't obey. They just kept steering where he wanted. Figures emerged from the shadows as we pulled up. All wearing the same heavy canvas jackets. All moving with that same unnatural stillness. The unloading took exactly 20 minutes. Those figures working in perfect coordination, silent, box after box disappearing into the warehouse. I sat there frozen, unable to move, unable to even turn my head. just watching in the mirrors as my entire load vanished. The whole time he sat next to me, humming those same 3 notes, occasionally checking that dead flip phone. When they finished, one figure slapped the back of my trailer twice. Suddenly I could move again, my arms and legs tingling like they'd been asleep. "Drive," he said. I did, backing out of the dock. But something in me snapped. Maybe desperation. Maybe just pure rage at being made helpless in my own truck. I grabbed the tire iron from under my seat and swung it at him as hard as I could. The iron went right through him like he was made of smoke. It clanged against the passenger door, and he turned to look at me with something that might have been disappointment. "Should have just kept driving," he said. Then he was gone. Just vanished. Like he'd never been there. The Steelers cap was gone too. My John Deere cap was back on my head. The sleeper compartment behind me was normal. My .38 right where I'd left it. I pulled over at the Rail Flying J at the bottom of the real Brookville exit and called the police with shaking fingers. They found my cargo 3 states away a week later, most of it already sold. But the warehouse I described didn't exist. Never had, according to county records. The security footage from the Clarion truck stop showed me pulling in for fuel. But there was nobody at the pumps. No hitchhiker. Just me standing there for 3 minutes talking to empty air before getting in my truck and driving away alone. They think I was in on it. That I staged the whole thing. But the charges didn't stick because they couldn't figure out how I did it. I don't drive trucks anymore. I work at a hardware store in Ohio now. And I never pick up hitchhikers. Never stop at that. Clarion exit. And I definitely never drive at night. Sometimes I still hear those 3 notes he was humming, usually when I'm about to fall asleep. And I wonder if he was ever really there. Or if something else entirely happened that night. Something my mind won't let me remember correctly. Because here's what really terrifies me: 6 other drivers reported similar encounters over the next year. All on Route 80. All picking up a man with a scar. All losing their cargo to a warehouse that doesn't exist. But 3 of those drivers were found dead in their cabs. Sitting upright behind the wheel, eyes open, no marks on their bodies. The autopsy said heart failure. All 3. Healthy men in their 40s and 50s, hearts just stopped. The police never connected the cases. Why would they? Different counties, different states, spread out over months. But I know. I know what they saw. I know what sat in their passenger seat, making impossible phone calls and humming those 3 notes that burrow into your brain and never leave. And I know I got lucky. Because when that tire iron went through him like smoke, he could have done to me what he did to those other drivers. Could have stopped my heart right there. Instead, he let me go. Let me live with the memory. With the knowledge that something is out there on Route 80, wearing human skin, picking which drivers to rob and which drivers to kill. The FBI agent I spoke with last year, off the record, told me they've documented 47 cases of drivers reporting supernatural encounters before cargo thefts. He called it psychological warfare. Said criminal organizations use drugs, hypnosis, and fear to make drivers compliant. But he couldn't explain the security footage. Couldn't explain how I talked to empty air. Couldn't explain those 3 dead drivers with no marks and stopped hearts. I still drive past that Clarion truck stop sometimes on my way to the hardware store. And every single time, I see him. Standing in the same spot, just at the edge of the light, holding that cardboard sign. East. He never moves. Never ages. Just waits for the next driver stupid enough to stop. I don't look anymore. I just keep driving, windows up, doors locked, trying not to think about those 20 minutes in the warehouse that doesn't exist. Trying not to wonder what really happened to my cargo, or to me. Because deep down, I know the truth. Something took those electronics. Something used me like a puppet. And that something is still out there, wearing its canvas jacket and waxy skin, humming 3 notes that only its victims can hear. Story 4, The Desert Watchers. I've been driving the southwestern routes for 11 years, and you learn quick that the desert has its own rules. What happened in August 2021 taught me that some of those rules are written in blood. I was hauling auto parts from El Paso to Phoenix, running late because of a delay at the warehouse. It was pushing 11 p.m. when I finally got on Interstate 10, the temperature still hovering around 95 degrees even after sunset. The desert doesn't cool down easy in August. It just turns from an oven to a slow broil. Around midnight, I was about 60 miles outside of Lordsburg, New Mexico. Nothing out here but sand, scrub brush, and the occasional rest area. The highway was nearly empty. I'd seen maybe 3 other vehicles in the past hour. That's when I noticed the lights. Not headlights. These were off the road, deep in the desert. Maybe a quarter mile from the highway. They looked like campfires, but there were too many of them. Dozens. All arranged in this perfect circle that had to be at least 200 feet across. I slowed down, trying to get a better look. As I got closer, I could see figures moving around the fires. People, but too far away to make out any details. They seemed to be dancing, or maybe just moving in patterns around the flames. My CB radio crackled to life, making me jump. Northbound driver approaching mile marker 87, you see them fires? I grabbed the mic. Yeah, I see them. What is that? Some kind of ceremony? Static, then, keep driving, friend. Don't stop. Don't even slow down. They're watching you. Who's watching me? But whoever it was had gone silent. The radio just hissed static. I looked back at the fires. And that's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. The figures weren't around the fires anymore. They were all standing still. Facing the highway. Facing me. All of them. Dozens of people, standing perfectly still in the desert darkness, watching my truck pass by. I pressed the accelerator, speeding up to 75. The fires fell behind, disappearing in my mirrors. But the feeling of being watched didn't go away. It got stronger. About 5 miles later, I saw something on the side of the road. A person, standing on the shoulder, thumb out like they were hitchhiking. But something was wrong with their proportions. Too tall. Arms too long. I blew past them, and in the split second my headlights hit them, I saw their face. Or what should have been their face. It was blank. Smooth. Like someone had erased their features. My hands started shaking on the wheel. I grabbed the CB mic again. Anyone out there? I just passed something on the road, something wrong. Mile 92, right? The same voice from before. Keep driving. You're being herded. Herded? What do you mean herded? They put something on the road ahead. Something to make you stop. When you stop, they take you. Keep driving no matter what you see. My throat went dry. Who are you? How do you know this? Because I'm watching the same thing happen to 3 other trucks right now. And I can't warn them all. Just keep moving, understand? Don't stop for anything. The radio went dead again. I was doing 80 now, pushing the truck as fast as it would safely go. The desert flew by on both sides, endless black punctuated by scrub brush that looked like reaching hands in my headlights. Then I saw it. A car, flipped on its side in the middle of the highway. A woman standing next to it, waving her arms frantically, illuminated by emergency flares scattered across the asphalt. She was screaming. I could see her mouth open, her body language desperate. Everything in me wanted to stop. Wanted to help. That's what you do when you see an accident. But I remembered the voice on the radio. They put something on the road ahead. I didn't slow down. I steered around the flipped car, around the woman. As I passed her, she turned to watch me go. And her scream cut off instantly. Her face went blank. Empty. The same erased features I'd seen on the hitchhiker. Then she smiled. This wide, impossible smile that stretched too far across her face. In my side mirror, I watched her walk back to the flipped car. She gripped the underside and lifted it. Lifted an entire car like it weighed nothing. Flipped it back onto its wheels. Got in and drove it off the highway into the desert darkness. The emergency flares went out, all at once. Like someone had blown out candles. I was hyperventilating now, my chest tight. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. The CB crackled again. You made it past the first one. There's 2 more ahead. Same thing. Accidents. People who need help. Don't stop. What are they? I managed to gasp out. Doesn't matter what we call them. Deserts had them longer than we've had roads. They used to take travelers on foot. Now they take drivers. Just keep moving. The next one appeared at mile marker 98. A semi-truck, jackknifed it across both lanes. A man in a driver's uniform lying on the ground, not moving. Blood pooled around him, gleaming in my headlights. I steered onto the shoulder, using the narrow space between the truck and the guardrail. My own trailer scraped against the metal barrier, sparks flying. But I didn't stop. As I squeezed past, the dead man sat up. Turned his head to watch me go. His eyes reflected my headlights like an animal's. Glowing yellow in the darkness. The jackknifed truck vanished in my mirrors. Just disappeared like it had never been there. The third trap was the worst. A school bus, on fire. Kids screaming from the windows. Small hands pressed against the glass. The sound of children crying filling the night air. I almost stopped. God help me, I almost did. My foot actually moved toward the brake pedal. But the voice on the CB screamed at me, "It's not real. Keep driving." I closed my eyes for just a second and floored it. When I opened them, the bus was gone. The screaming cut off like someone had thrown a switch. The road ahead was empty. I drove for another 20 miles in complete silence. No more traps. No more figures. Just empty highway. Finally, I saw the lights of Lordsburg ahead. Civilization. Safety. I'd never been so grateful to see a town in my life. As I pulled off at the truck stop exit, the CB crackled one last time. You're one of the smart ones. Most don't make it. They stop. They try to help. And the desert keeps them. Who are you? I asked. Are you another driver? Long pause. Then, I was. 20 years ago. Now I watch the roads. Try to warn the ones who might listen. Try to save who I can. Where are you? Same place you would have been if you'd stopped. Out there in the desert. With the others. They keep us here, making us help with the traps. Making us lure more drivers. But some of us still fight it. Still try to warn people. How many are out there? Hundreds. Maybe thousands. The desert's big, and it's been hungry for a long time. The radio went silent. I tried calling back, but got nothing but static. I sat in that truck stop parking lot until sunrise, too afraid to sleep. Too afraid to close my eyes and see that woman's erased face, that impossible smile. When morning came, I called the New Mexico State Police. Reported everything. They sent a unit to check the area around mile marker 87. They found the remains of the fires. And they found something else. Tire tracks. Dozens of them, leading off into the desert. Tracks from cars, trucks, semis. All of them ending about a quarter mile from the highway. Ending at nothing. Just stopping in the middle of the sand like the vehicles had vanished. The officer I spoke with said they'd found similar track patterns before. Always in the same area. Always ending at nothing. They'd sent search parties out there, but never found any vehicles. Never found any people. But they did find bones. Scattered human bones, bleached white by the sun. Always arranged in circles. Always too many to count. He told me to take a different route next time. Said this stretch of Interstate 10 had the highest number of missing truckers in the entire country. Over 40 in the past 10 years alone. No bodies ever recovered. No vehicles ever found. I asked him about the fires. The ceremony. He got quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "We see those fires sometimes from the highway. The locals won't talk about them. Won't even acknowledge they exist. But there's stories. Old stories. About things that lived in this desert long before humans did. Things that learned to use our roads like we use traps for animals. I don't drive that route anymore. I'll take an extra 200 miles to avoid that stretch of Interstate 10. And when other drivers ask me why, I tell them about bad weather or construction. I don't tell them the truth. Because who would believe it? Who would believe that there are things in the desert that wear human faces like masks? Things that create elaborate traps to lure drivers off the road? But sometimes, late at night when I'm driving through empty stretches of highway, I listen to the CB radio. And sometimes I hear that voice. Warning other drivers. Trying to save them. And I wonder how many of the voices on that radio are actually living people. And how many are like him. Trapped in the desert. Still trying to help. Still fighting against whatever keeps them there. The desert is big. And it's hungry. And it's been feeding on travelers for thousands of years. Now it just uses our own roads to catch us. Story 5, the convoy that wasn't there. In May 2022, I was driving a load of medical supplies from Minneapolis to Kansas City. The run usually takes about 6 hours, but I'd hit weather delays and ended up driving through the night. Around 3 a.m., I was on Interstate 35 somewhere in Iowa, in that dead stretch where there's nothing but farmland on both sides. The highway was empty. I hadn't seen another vehicle in almost 30 minutes. Then, suddenly, there they were. 5 trucks appeared in my mirrors. All at once. Like they'd materialized out of nowhere. They were running tight formation, maybe 50 feet between each truck. All identical. Same model, same color, same configuration. Dark blue Peterbilts with no company markings. No lights except their headlights. No running lights. No clearance lights. Just those headlights cutting through the darkness. I checked my speedometer. I was doing 68. They were gaining on me fast. Within a minute, they'd caught up. The lead truck pulled into the left lane and came alongside me. I glanced over at the driver. He was staring straight ahead, not looking at me. His face was pale, almost gray in the dashboard lights. He wasn't blinking. The second truck moved up on my right, boxing me in. The other 3 stayed behind, perfectly spaced. Like a military formation. My CB radio should have been lighting up. That's what truckers do. We talk. We communicate. Especially when you're running in a convoy like this. But my radio was completely silent. Not even static. I tried broadcasting. "Hey, you guys running a convoy? What's your 20? Where you headed?" Nothing. No response. The trucks maintained their positions around me for about 5 miles. I kept trying the radio. Kept trying to catch the eye of one of the drivers. But they all stared straight ahead. No movement. No acknowledgement. Then, in perfect synchronization, all 5 trucks turned on their high beams. The light was blinding. My cab filled with this intense white glare that washed out everything. I couldn't see my mirrors. Couldn't see my dashboard. Couldn't see the road ahead. Just pure white light surrounding me on all sides. I hit my brakes, trying to drop back, get out of their formation. But as soon as I slowed down, they slowed down too. Matching my speed exactly. Keeping me boxed in. Keeping me blind. My heart was hammering. I had no idea where the road was going. If there was a curve ahead, I'd miss it completely. I'd run off the road, flip my truck, die in a ball of fire and twisted metal. I tried speeding up. The trucks matched me again. 70, 75, 80, no matter what I did, they stayed with me. Surrounding me. Blinding me. Then I heard it. A sound coming through my radio, even though no one was transmitting. A low droning noise. Almost like chanting. Dozens of voices, all in unison, speaking in a language I didn't recognize. The temperature in my cab started dropping. Fast. My breath began fogging. Frost formed on the inside of my windshield, crawling across the glass like living ice. In the white glare, I started seeing shapes. Shadows moving inside the other trucks. Not one driver per cab. Multiple figures. Dozens in each truck. Pressed against the windows. Faces with too many eyes. Hands with too many fingers. I screamed and yanked my wheel hard to the right. My truck lurched toward the shoulder. The truck on my right should have hit me. Should have crushed my cab. But it wasn't there anymore. I skidded onto the shoulder, nearly jackknifing. Managed to get the truck stopped sideways across both lanes. My chest heaving. Sweat pouring down my face despite the freezing temperature. The highway ahead was empty. No trucks. No lights. Just darkness and empty road. I sat there shaking for 10 minutes before I could move again. The frost on my windshield melted slowly, dripping down the glass. The temperature returned to normal. The CB radio went back to its usual static. When I finally got moving again, I found a truck stopped 40 miles down the road. Pulled in and asked if anyone had seen a convoy of 5 blue Peterbilts. No one had. Said the highway had been dead all night. I checked my truck's dashcam footage. The camera should have recorded everything. But there was nothing. Just me, driving alone on an empty highway. No other trucks. No lights. Nothing. But here's the thing that still keeps me awake. When I got home and unloaded my cargo, I found handprints on my trailer. Dozens of them. Pressed into the metal so hard they left dents. Handprints with 6 fingers. They never washed off. No matter what I tried. Those prints are still there. A reminder of the convoy that wasn't there. The trucks full of things that weren't human. Whatever they wanted with me, I got away. But others haven't been so lucky.